It's our Sunday Stock Talk today, and we're going to be going over the top quantum and AI and space tech stocks to be watching right now. And hopefully, you guys enjoy. We're going to be jumping in just a second here. So, one of the biggest evolutions we've seen really in the past few months has been really a transition from focusing specifically on AI to a focus on what different markets will be powering the AI boom. So you can look at the NVIDIA companies, you can look at AMD, which is definitely a good one to be looking at. But what is powering the companies? And that's when you start to look at data centers. So that's when we start to look at, for example, quantum computing. And quantum computing is having a pretty big week this week. Now, we don't know if it's going to be a really green week or a really red week because we can't control whether or not, any institutions buy or sell. But what we do know is we can have an idea of the targets, the earnings, and what potential catalysts could happen this week. And here's what we got going. So inside of Stockmates, if you guys ever want to join us, we have our daily live session. It's happening about 12 hours from now, or 8 hours from now. Live trading is happening. So if you want to be there at market open, it's the second link in the description. One thing we release every week are our targets for the companies, and then also the different companies that are reporting. Now, if you want the targets, you could get them in Stockmate, but we're going to actually look here for the companies that are reporting. And I see Eric here. Eric, good to see you here. Sam, good to see you. Tanette, good to see you. And happy to have an outlook here. Two Brothers says hello, first time viewer. Happy to have you here. So when it comes to some of the top earnings we'll be watching this week, we have on Monday, pre-market, we have On Semiconductor. So On Semi is one that has really been getting momentum in the semiconductor space. So their ticker symbol ON, and they are a company that's had a really nice rally for a while there. It was I was wondering if they were ever going to recover from this range of $30. They started to make a very nice recovery, recently pulled back, and they're based out of Scottsdale, Arizona, if I'm not mistaken, and they are reporting earnings this week. Now, the other companies we got reporting are Palantir Monday after hours. So that's going to be a big one that everybody is watching. You got a good look into pharmaceuticals would be Pfizer for sure. But really what we're going to be following the most on Tuesday is going to be after hours. You got AMD, Supermicro Computer, and Arista. So really in data centers and in the infrastructure GPUs that are powering the AI race. Now, GPUs and CPUs, so you got the computing companies, but then we get into some quantum computing companies. So this week we actually, Wednesday after hours, are going to see and there's some good ones on Wednesday pre-market. You got Uber and Shopify. Things are really starting to heat up. And you got IonQ. So now we got some quantum companies reporting earnings this week on Wednesday. Two Brothers says, I did great with your APLD heads up, and I'm here looking for more, considering joining the team this week. Nothing that I could tell you isn't something that's, publicly available, right? I like to think that sometimes we're able to uncover some gems for you. But when it comes to this week and what is different from last week we had a lot of tech momentum, and APLD went up about 30% or so. We were able to catch that. Our APLD position is up about 30%, which is excellent. This week, we're looking at the quantum computing companies. So you got IonQ reporting. You also have Symbotic, so some robotics there. Joby Aviation is reporting on Wednesday. Those are all after hours. Then on Thursday, pre-market, we have D-Wave, QBTS, reporting pre-market on Thursday. And then you got Rocket Lab reporting on Thursday after hours. And then on Friday, you also have a nuclear company, SMR, reporting there on Thursday, which should be interesting. And that seems like things kind of Yeah, they get a little slower on Friday, but you got Fubu and Tempest there. So, you got Fubu, definitely, a lot of people are following it. Personally, I don't see a tremendous amount of value. I know they have value and that they have some good earnings, but I've noticed that a lot of people use them and then cancel their subscriptions. So Radwan, it's possible they could have a really good time, but I have noticed that's something that happens with them. The other notable one a lot of people are looking for this week, Monday after hours, is Navitas Semiconductor. So that should be interesting. And if you're into companies competing with Amazon, but outside of the US, because Amazon doesn't really hit all countries, Mercado Libre is like an Amazon, but it's in all of Latin America, and they are very good. My wife actually introduced me to them, and we use them all the time when we were in Argentina, and a lot of countries use Mercado Libre. So that's an interesting one too. So we're going to jump right in to the breakdowns today. So the first stock we were going to look at here is going to be IonQ. IonQ is reporting earnings on Thursday. Is that right? Or was it Wednesday? Wednesday after hours. And IonQ's had some surges. We started covering them around $6 a share. We got to ride a nice position up to $54 a share. They crashed here back in January, sold off until April, and then have been recovering ever since. Now, recently they started pulling back, and we saw with the greater market sell-off, a lot of companies pull back. And we see, whoa, we got quite a lot of drawings here. So let me just clean it up for a second here. Looks like we have some really interesting drawings. All right, there we are. So this is kind of what we were looking at last, maybe with IonQ, kind of seeing this uptrend, but seeing them consolidate from left to right over the last few months. So they go from left to right. You can see that they are moving from this $35 a share price point up to about $50 a share, and they recently sold down to about $37 a share. Now, IonQ specializes in quantum computing. There's a bill that was recently benefiting IonQ. It's a $2.7 billion deal with Quantum Initiative Reauthorization Act, and IonQ was one of the main companies to see investment. You could see right here that IonQ was one of the top companies to receive some funding. Now, after that, we had them really start to cook things up. I was able to meet some executives, and the number one thing that we noticed about IonQ, you guys want to know what it is? The number one thing we noticed about IonQ is that they are using quantum computers right now, and they are using it in many different industries, from drug discovery to finding peptide proteins that can bind, that they got to go through thousands of different potential connections, or millions, to quantum machine learning, to batteries. They were able to take 20 years worth of knowledge, 8 million data points, run them through a quantum computer, a QPU, get it down to what was just 8 options. And within 6 months, they improved the lithium ion battery by 70%. Then you got customers like Air Force, Microsoft, Amazon Bracket, Google Cloud. You got Airbus and Hyundai, Thomas Cat, who are also they are reporting earnings this week. And then you got partners like NVIDIA, DARPA, again, Microsoft, Lockheed Martin, Accenture as well. And they actually have all of these different partnerships mapped out. So you can actually see how they're connected, which is super cool. And so what we know about IonQ is they're reporting this week, they have come in with a little bit less than favorable earnings, right? Their revenue has been very, I guess, small, with around 7 to 10 million, sometimes $12 million per quarter. And their net income has been negative. You see their negative net income there. Now they're getting a lot of funding. They have a huge balance sheet of nearly $1 billion, with liabilities just at 85 million. And they're starting to maybe get some momentum here. Their market cap's really high, so when you look at the financials from an income statement perspective, they look a little bit overvalued at the moment. But when we're looking at the potential of what they could do, being able to compute things like we're talking about computing atoms and electrons. There's extreme high frequencies that GPUs aren't able to do. And qubits, as they work with atoms and ions, there's extreme frequencies that are very high frequency in the amount of change. And to be able to actually use ion trap technology and be able to use quantum computer to solve problems, that's when QPUs start to come to the conversation. And that's when GPUs start to look like really great technology in tandem with QPUs, but definitely you start to see, oh, well, there could be a lot of money in QPUs. That's what's happening here. That's why we see them continue to build out. So with their earnings here, they have a very key support level here at about $37 a share. Why it's a key earnings is because if they're not able to hold that $37 a share price point, most likely we see them fully break pattern and we start to see something similar to what we saw last time when they weren't able to hold that level. They started to sell down, sold as low as 17 bucks. So really key earnings for them. They come in with some good numbers. Maybe they're able to bounce this $37 price point and maybe make this recovery. Now, what kind of recovery are we looking for? About a 5 to 10% swing. Right now, we'd be targeting about a 5 here to 7% swing in a recovery. However, if that's the case, sometimes what we do is we trade IONX. And IONX goes up 2% or down 2% every time IonQ goes up 1% or down 1%. So it's a 2x. And if we wanted to, for example, make a 5% trade on IonQ like that, we'd be looking for a 10% swing over on IONX. So we'll be watching there as well. So there's some other notable companies reporting earnings this week. There's some good ticker symbols that we've been covering that are related to quantum. And you have also QBTS reporting earnings this week too. And Michael Anthony says, could they pull back to that $20 range? It's possible. There are 3 stages to a reversal. The first stage is going to be the initial trend. Second stage is going to be a consolidation. And the third stage is going to be the trend in the opposite direction. And so, if we're going to see a recovery here, it's got to be strong. It's got to really verify and validate that support level and see institutional accumulation. Otherwise, this could be a reversal and they could sell down past this level. So earnings time is a great time to be watching them because this is when a lot of investors make those decisions. Institutional investors make their moves, very heavily reliant on what comes out in the earnings. Now, the other company that we've been following really closely is AMD. So we have some long-term positions and short-term trades going with AMD stock. AMD specializes in data centers and building GPUs that in some cases have been said to be more effective and more powerful than that of NVIDIA's. So, we've been watching this level. We actually got in pretty long ago. We have an AMDL position and an AMD position. AMD up about 70% in our position and AMDL up about 44%. And we're looking for what was 180% recovery. And so far, we haven't seen the full 180, but we've seen a 124% recovery on AMD. Now, AMD stock has notoriously doubled their revenue. They've had really good earnings over the last few years. Not only that, they've managed to still sell off for months and months and months while they were crushing their earnings. So you can kind of see the quarterly revenues. March 5 billion, then you got 5.8, then you got 6.8, then you got 7.6. They dipped a tiny bit in March 2025, but look at that, just increasing their revenue and their net income increasing. So more profits, net income up 400% year over year. annually, you see them really increase their revenue from 9 billion in 2020 up into as high, an all-time high of 25 billion in 2024. So basically, I know there's a lot of focus on Nvidia, and while that's great, this is a company that is doing really good numbers, and their balance sheet looks good too. They got about 69 billion in assets with 11 billion in liabilities, so very disciplined there. There's a few things to note about AMD. One thing to note about AMD stock, if you search AMD and Starlink, this is where I've found they have the biggest advantage. Starlink chose AMD as the main company to provide the microchips for their Starlink constellation. So all of the internets that Starlink is giving out, they were able to say, we're going to go with AMD. So what does that say? Well, it says first they went with AMD rather than Nvidia. Second, they're willing to send up AMD chips for, ever up into space. And that is something that indicates they are confident in the quality of AMD stock. So you also see some articles from us over here on the right, AMD and Starlink, AMD stock, AMD. I appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much for ranking us on Google, things like that. Really does help out with the channel. You guys smashing that like button, all that stuff, to get people, some more information. One other thing that it seems that this AI article is kind of referencing some of our stuff, which is really cool. They have the Versal chips, and they recently started moving into also OpenAI type of competition. So AMD actually started to acquire this company. This company is called Briam, and Briam specializes in large language models that are highly efficient and that are able to actually be faster than that of like Gemini or ChatGPT when running on the same GPUs. And so basically, Briam was just acquired by AMD so that AMD can essentially use the AI or potentially, build out more of a open source software. Now, in this company Briam, one thing that they recently published before they were acquired here, and I don't know if you guys find this interesting. Do you guys find this interesting over here on AMD? Is it cool I'm covering like this? I feel like this is cool. So how Briam is shaping the future of AI. So you could see there was this comparison, right? So both they're on the right, they're running SGLang, which is very, very common. That's what most language models run. And then on the left, they were running here their Briam, right? This is their setup. Now they're both running on AMD GPUs, the MI210s. And you can see on the left, Briam was like going super fast and being able to spit out answers through the large language model extremely fast. And so, that's why we see Briam, they were really hitting these benchmarks. They were coming out with some really good data. And what did that mean? Well, very shortly, they're basically on every benchmark, they were coming out with better numbers. Very shortly after this, they were acquired by AMD. Is AMD starting to maybe build out their own language models for things related to OpenAI? Possibly. We know they are moving heavily into data centers, and that they basically cut off a lot of their focus on the video gaming industry and was able to really, really increase their revenue as a result of doubling down and focusing on building those data centers as opposed to just doing the gaming chips and things like that. So that's where we see them really cook up. They got their earnings this week. There's a previous resistance and support around $160 a share. They're still trying to make this rally up to previous highs. So they're trying to make this run right now. Every time they've reported earnings, they have come out with negative stock movement despite big earnings for months, really. Since March 2024, they were doubling their revenue and selling off. But now we see them start to recover. We're looking for maybe a recovery into previous highs It's about a 40% increase. So again, they're reporting earnings there on Tuesday after hours, and most likely we'll be trading it or we'll be following it closely there. So yeah, so exactly. I think it's going to be one that is going to be helpful for everybody to kind of follow. When it comes to super microcomputer, that's another one. So SMCI, the one we're watching this week for SMCI, it's funny. A lot of people don't realize it, but it's just the same as, identifying a company for the first time. It's like a lot of times you got to reverse engineer. And SMCI, super microcomputer, they actually are doing the housing of the GPUs. They create these towers that house the GPUs, and they have partnerships with NVIDIA. They have partnerships with actually APLD, which is the main data center builder. If you go over to APLD here, you can actually see one of their main partners. You got NVIDIA, Dell, but they're building those data centers, and you have super microcomputer as one of their main. They're also super microcomputer, a partner with XAI, actually, for Elon's company. They do those housing to hold those NVIDIA GPU chips. Now, one thing to note is year over year, they've seen tremendous growth from 3 billion up to as high as 15 billion in 2024. Now, they did see a lower drop in their revenue down to about $4 billion in March 2025, which looked like a slight dip from previous quarters, but was still much higher, really about 20% higher than the previous year in the same period. So while it looks like they kind of dipped, they are still improving and are on track to exceed the revenues they did last year. The balance sheet also looks good. Total assets up there around 10 billion and their liabilities just around 4 billion. So that's looking good too. Their PE ratio is at 31, which is not really unhealthy. It's quite good. We've seen them really continue to sell down as low as $17. And it looks like last time we were targeting for them to get back up into this $65 range, about a 50% increase to a $75 range. And they did make a 22% gain of that, and they recently sold down. So they have their earnings. They come in with some good earnings. They're a company that could potentially break out. Now, they have a resistance there at about $65. And then they have a support level here. You can kind of see this previous resistance. That's going to act as a support most likely there around about $50 a share. So they got a $50 support with the resistance at 65, and they're currently at 57. And we could see them potentially make this move up here, about a 17% increase to $65 a share. That's kind of what we're watching. We do have some targets and some reasons why in StockMates. So if you guys want to see our targets and join us in our daily live trading sessions every morning at market open, it's the second link in the description down below. So today is Sunday, and we're seeing a lot of movements in the market, and I'm really excited to see when the market reacts on Monday, kind of the sentiment that we get heading into this week. And I've seen a lot of growth just in data center companies this week or the past few weeks, and also a lot of growth in AI. And that's where we're going to continue to focus in quantum AI. The other companies we're going to focus on pretty heavily this week are going to be the space tech industry. We saw some recent pullbacks in space tech, but we didn't see the contracts slow up. In fact, we saw more launches of spacecrafts this past month than almost any other month. We have seen more contracts roll in for space tech this past month than nearly any month in history. And so the missions are going crazy. Rocket Lab's up to almost $40 a share, or $50 a share, excuse me. We got Redwire we're going to be watching. Black Sky is another one. The AI satellites we'll be watching there. And so really it's going to come down to seeing overall market sentiment. While we saw a big pullback on Friday, we are still looking to see if the sentiment can continue, as there's a lot of value being created in those markets. So that's why we'll be watching here on Monday. And then, did any company? There's a question there from A1 Steak, which that just reminds me. Every time we have steak, that when I was a kid, that was my mom's favorite dressing. A1. You say, did any quantum company even sell a quantum computer this quarter? We know that Rigetti was selling some quantum computers to some universities. D-Wave did one that was sold last quarter that went on their balance sheet to Oakidge, and then the other one that they wasn't maybe classified as a sale. We didn't really get details on the financials, but they got a quantum computer out to Davidson. That's right, Davidson. And then for IonQ, they got a quantum computer out to NASA, I believe, and they also had a quantum a few more research centers pop up. Let's see if they have any. It was Oakidge, yeah. So Oakidge is one of the recent quantum research centers that I don't know if you guys know. They were able to send like an insane amount of data from one quantum computer to another through basically light from 10 feet apart. So in light speed, send data from one computer to another 10 feet apart, basically. Very crazy stuff. And so you could see them actually working now with Oakidge National Laboratory. So that's one you got going. And as far as them selling any new quantum computers from the IonQ, it was mostly just universities and getting more research centers out. They kind of classify them as they're more like grants/sales, but they are trying to expand their network. And so that's why not always is there a big price tag when they get their quantum computers out. At least that's what it's been like right now. Yeah, Steven says, I saw that light teleportation thing. Yeah, man, that's crazy. We are in a golden age, aren't we? Two Brothers says, Super Microcomputer is undervalued. With good earnings and guidance, this is going to have an explosive move up like APLD data center building out. It's moving Super Microcomputer forward. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to any data centers that are getting built by any major companies, I mean, we've seen it here. A lot of times they choose Super Microcomputer. Super Microcomputer does these like towers here that hold the GPUs. So with the demand for AI, absolutely, it's a good take to have. Absolutely. I love it. So when it comes to, there's a few ticker symbols here, and I appreciate it. They're exciting to see. You got Wolf stock. They're reporting earnings this week. I don't cover them because we could do one more look here, and I'll see how the financials look. Let's see how the financials look. Terra Wolf stock. So we didn't cover them last time because their liabilities were so high, and then they reported what was like bankruptcy or something like that. Was that right? Did they do something like that? I'm not really sure. Maybe that was a different Wolf stock. Excuse me. And let's see what their earnings look like. Net incomes are negative, about 60 million. They're losing every quarter. Annually, though, it looks like their revenue is increasing more than their net income is decreasing. And then their total liabilities are lower than their total assets. Not too bad. A little bit high on the liabilities, though. You'd like to see a more discipline like this as opposed to where they're at. But I'd be more than happy to take a deeper look if you have more information. The other one you have is someone mentioned Opendoor. And Opendoor, I believe they specialize in, let me pull them up here. Are they a real estate company? Technologies, Opendoor Technologies. Yeah, they do residential real estate. They buy and sell real estate. And, they're fine. They got good revenues. Their net income, very negative, decreasing revenues a little bit, and pretty volatile. Their balance sheet also had a lot of liabilities. See how their liabilities are pretty high? It's fine, but not really one that necessarily is indicating tremendous upside. You've also seen them pump recently. There's a lot of YouTubers I've seen personally, maybe not just YouTubers, but actually more likely on like TikTok, things like that, where we've seen the stock get hyped up for a few no apparent reasons. While it looks good, they got high revenues, their liabilities are also very high as well. So potentially could see some more growth, but again, just seeing those liabilities holding pretty high on the balance sheet. So that's why we could watch them there as they're reporting earnings this week as well. If you guys want to get these earnings targets along with our daily live sessions, the next session's happening in about 7 hours. So tomorrow morning. And we have our earnings coming out. We got learning, if you want to know technical fundamental analysis, we got the targets for the week rolling out. And then also I'll send you a free t-shirt. For the time being, if you're already planning on investing in Big Bear AI, we have a current sale ending tonight. If you want to join in to learn how to invest in quantum, AI, space tech stocks, that if Big Bear AI hits $9 a share by their earnings date, then you get StockMate for free. That's right, I'll give you a full refund if Big Bear AI hits $9 a share by earnings day on August 11th. And I have calls on Big Bear. That's why I'm able to offer that to you. So if I win big, so do you. And regardless, it's a great deal. It's closing our summer sale there. Lifetime access to our recurring private sessions. And they're not on YouTube. It's a different thing. It's like totally separate. If you want to get into our daily live trading at Market Open, second link below in the description. Also, we just announced some really cool stuff here on over here. If you ever wanted to get an analysis of different companies, we have this here. It's our Mercadus Machine. You can visualize markets in a 3D market network, and you can also get future price projections for companies. In this case, we're using the OpenAI model. We're rolling out Grok, Claude, Gemini, DeepSeek, and Meta. And if you want to utilize the OpenAI GPT Pro model, it's available for you. All you have to do to learn more is check out that first link in the description down below. Just pulling up an AMD analysis. Looks like it's pretty bullish over the next month, potentially getting up in that 177 market. It says ongoing global chip shortage is driving prices up, benefiting AMD. Supported by strong quarterly earnings, positive industry trends. AMD's product pipeline and strategic partnerships support a positive long-term outlook. You guys see that? Pretty cool, right? To get a full idea. So if you ever want to get these super great insights on companies and use AI to do the research for you, 93% of it, then you can get it here in the first link below. And also, when you join the machine, it's a 1-year license for complete access to all the models. And not only that, you get StockMate as a bonus. So if you're curious, go check that first link below. Appreciate you all. Hey, thanks for tuning in, Carmen. I appreciate you, Steven, two brothers. We got Aaron. Thanks for tuning in. Clarence, Tristan, Steven. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you have a great rest of your Sunday and enjoy the rest of it. And I'll see you guys in the markets tomorrow morning.